Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the 52nd session of Majlis Al Khonji via Zoom. Today, we have a very interesting topic. Our guest will talk about the secrets of a prosperous economy. Please allow me to introduce our guest for this session, Mr. Tim Vallancey, CEO of Oman International Group, OIG, a leading facility management company in Oman. Mr. Tim was born in the United Kingdom in 1962 and graduated from University West of England in math, statistics, business studies, and computing in 1985. He started his career in 1981 in communications technology. He joined IBM in 1988 and promoted to a client manager for corporate and government. He started a computer training franchise business in the 1995 in the southwest of England. Mr. Tim moved to Oman in 2007 to work as a managing director for a training and management consultancy startup, and he joined OIG as a deputy general manager in March 2008 and promoted to CEO in 2013. As a person, he's an open-minded and ambitious with attention to details, enjoy problem solving and engaging in public speaking. He enjoys travel and exploring different cultures, having lived in South Africa, West Africa, Sweden, Iraq, and Spain, speaks fluent Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish, as well as a basic French, Arabic, Thai, and Spanish. He's a qualified PSAC diving instructor and a private pilot and enjoys outdoor activities. Welcome, Mr. Tim, to Majlis Al Khonji, and I would like also to welcome Mr. Simon Karam in moderating this session today with us. Thank you very much all.
Thank you, Rihan. Thank you, everybody, for attending. I don't want to sound pedantic, but I love details like Tim does, as a mathematician particularly, very meticulous. Economy, economy, I love etymology, the origin of words. Economy is composed of two words, Greek words. Oikos means house. Wow, that's amazing, which means when we talk, oikos is house, and namen is law, the law of the house. So economy is how we run our house. This is what it means. And prosperous is rich, is flourishing. One would have, I'm sure we will hear the word of sustainable during the talk. And Tim will take us today, into what he knows as secrets of prosperity in general. And what's the difference between various societies. And I would like, in the end, if he can mention a little bit whether prosperity can bring happiness to people on its own. We touch on different grounds there. Anyway, without further ado, I leave you the floor to disclose to us these secrets that we've been planning and looking for, especially now at the beginning of our Vision 2040, the first 5-year plan, and the first plan of the first year of the 5-year plan. So it's not too late to inject and put the input that you're going to give us in the plans of our economy. And thank you for joining us. I leave it to you, Tim.
Control. Am I ready to go? Excellent. Okay. Well, good morning. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's a privilege to be invited to present to such an esteemed audience. And let me start by saying that some of the material in today's presentation is influenced from the 2040 conference at the beginning of 2019. So I don't think we can't help but be impressed at how Oman has progressed since the Renaissance. And if we look at the secondary school enrollment has gone from 0 to over 100, tertiary school enrollment's gone from 0 to 45, and mortality rate dropped dramatically, life expectancy has increased, infant mortality has dropped, and things like access to electricity and cell phone penetration, etc., and GDP per capita in US dollars gone from 400 to over nearly 16,000, and population from 700,000 to 4.5 million. Although I think now it's that number should be slightly revised down. So that's great to look back at what we've achieved, but we need to look forward, but knowing how much we've managed to do in the past. Recently, however, growth has declined, due to the global financial crisis and the drop in oil price. And we need to look at how we can continue to grow at the same rate that we grew in the past without that same oil revenue. And also how we can increase employment of the national workforce. So we've got a 2040 vision, which is a great asset for the country. It involves agreeing on a set of shared and ambitious goals. It targets reforms in 3 key areas: society of created individuals, a competitive economy, and a capable state. So in summary, basically, Oman's achieved great things in the past due to its wise use of oil wealth. Recently, there's been slightly less achievement, mainly due to the reduced oil price, and we've got a shared and ambitious vision for 2040. So we're looking at building a strategy to achieve prosperity with less reliance on oil. Having a shared and ambitious vision is a great asset to facilitate progress. The question we have to ask ourselves is how are we going to achieve prosperity with less reliance on oil wealth? And to do this, we need a strategy. Now, achieve wealth was the question that gave rise to economics, as Simon was discussing just then. And Adam Smith wrote this book back in 1776. And at that time, the difference in GDP per capita between the richest nation in the world and the poorest which was the richest nation was probably Netherlands, there was a factor of 4. Today, however, one of the poorest nations in the world is Malawi with a per capita of 226, which is, and if we multiply this by 4, which was the distance between the richest and the poorest countries in the world in 1776, we get to Haiti, which is one of the poorest countries in the Americas. And we multiply this by 4, we get to Morocco. And if we multiply this by 4, we get to Poland. And if we multiply that by 4, we then get to Singapore. So when we look at Oman's GDP per capita, it's a bit more than Poland and Argentina. And the question is really, how do we move from where we are to, say, Singapore's GDP? Now, when Adam Smith wrote his book, the difference was a factor of 4, and now it's a factor of 256. So I suggest that if we read Adam Smith, it's not really going to solve our problem because the problem's so much bigger. Now, if we go back to the sort of the year dot, as it were, up until about 200 years ago, the GDP per capita was relatively stagnant. And then about 200 years ago, it all took off and exploded. But it didn't change at the same rate for every country. Some countries grew more than others, and this is what's known as the Great Divergence. And it allows us to take a picture like this one today and a picture like this one. And we have to ask ourselves a question as to why this technology has not been replaced by this technology. And economists have had answers to this question. They say maybe it's because this guy here has got more education, maybe he's working with more capital, maybe he's got more land, but they say this doesn't really explain the whole story. You can't explain these differences unless you account for another factor, technology. So the differences in these 2 pictures is governed by technology. And technology, it's a great word, but it sort of has a rather fuzzy meaning to it, in the sense it's not really that easy to define it. So what I've looked at technology is probably the combination of 3 things. I'd say it's tools, and it's codes, recipes, protocols, and how to do manuals. Now, if it was just these things, okay, you could put the tools and things on a container ship, you can ship them around the world, and you can stick the protocols and things on the internet for everyone to access. And if this was the case, then technology would have diffused across the world would be flat, and all countries would be equal. But that hasn't happened, as we've seen. So, and the reason that hasn't happened is reason that hasn't happened can be answered by asking ourselves this question: what would you do if your tooth hurts? And as you know, given what I just said, you could download some protocols off the internet, and you could get your significant other to get some tools, and they could fix the problem for you. But that's not what you do. You go to a dentist, because a dentist, he mixes the tools and follows the protocols, but he has something else in his brain which is called know-how. He can see things inside your mouth that you and I can't see, and he moves his hands in a way that you and I can't. So, but know-how is very hard to move around. It exists in brains, and that's where the problem comes in. So technology is a combination of tools, codes, and know-how. It doesn't exist in books, it exists in brains, and it's difficult to move from person to person. For example, we don't teach our children to walk by explaining the concepts. It's hard to acquire, and it gets accumulated through imitation and repetition. It moves with great difficulty from brain to brain. This man here, for example, he knows how to return a serve, but if you sit down with him and have a conversation, your tennis game is not going to improve. We don't teach our children to walk by explaining the concepts. Know-how is not conceptual. So, if I ask you, how do you walk? What muscles do you use? Which order do you fire them? How do you keep your balance? You won't be able to tell me. Know-how is a wiring of the brain that you and I aren't even aware of. But it's not just, modern technology is not just performed by individuals. It's performed by teams of people bringing different skills together. This guy, for example, is, you might say he knows how to fly a commercial plane. He's commercial, but a commercial aircraft isn't flown by an individual. It requires a whole team of people with different skills. So he relies on a team of people that we can call team know-how to implement that technology. So it involves collaboration and putting a team of individuals together with all the complementary skills required to implement that technology. So what I'm going to argue is that progress requires acquiring more know-how, and more advanced countries have more know-how than less advanced countries. And this can be illustrated in the following way, as know-how sort of develops in very unintuitive ways. Ask yourselves a question here. Who has more know-how? I'm going to take an example of two individuals. We'll take an Eskimo in North America. Here he is involved in food production. Here he is in housing construction. And here he is involved in transport. So we compare this Eskimo with the modern man and ask ourselves, who has more know-how? This guy here, he's using he's got screen, keyboard, software, he's got glasses, etc. And if you put him in this environment here, there's a good chance that high probability that he's going to die. Either he's going to starve to death or he's going to freeze to death. So it's not meaningful to say that this guy has got more know-how than these guys. But it is meaningful to say that the society that he belongs to has more know-how. He doesn't know how to make these things. He doesn't know how to make the glasses or the keyboard and things, but someone in his society does know how to make those. So it's not that he's from a society of geniuses. It's not necessarily, the individuals don't necessarily know more, but the individuals know different things. And this again explains why, for example, your dentist is not your lawyer, because it takes so long to, get the knowledge to be a dentist that you're not going to then go and spend another 10 years or 7 years or whatever to become a lawyer. So as knowledge accumulates, where do we store it? Harvard University started in 1636 in this building here, and as more subjects grew over the years, the campus grew with more faculties, etc. And now you've got a massive campus. But in 1636, a university degree lasted 4 years. And today, how long does a college degree take? It takes the same 4 years. So we've got so much more knowledge around, but we're still only taking 4 years to study. So what we do is we now put different knowledge in different people's heads. So we don't try and put more in the same people. We put different knowledge in different people's heads. So we teach people different things, not more, and then we collaborate. And this is because there's only so much that you can teach a person. So if we look at it, how much you can teach a person, we call it, it's not a terabyte, gigabyte, or megabyte or anything. We call it a person byte, which again explains why your dentist is not your lawyer. So how are we going to use productive knowledge? We say productive products differ in the number of person bytes that they require. To create products that require more than one person byte, you need to aggregate people together in firms like accountants, salespeople, designers, human resource, etc. And then you put networks of individuals together, and then put firms together that can do things that individuals can't do, and then we create value chains consisting of many firms. So if you look at production, you've got here, this example is a family of subsistence farmers in Ecuador. They know how to they make all these things. They survive on their own, they're subsistence farmers. These guys here have their own businesses, they're family businesses, they know how to run, but they're no longer self-sufficient. Neither of them can make a hamburger, for example, on their own, but they know how to run a business. The baker doesn't know about meat, the butcher doesn't know about bread, but each one can work on their own and they can be a family business. But I challenge you to show me a family that can make all these products. Modern production involves the collaboration to such an extent across many countries with many firms involved that no country knows how to build some products. They require the collaboration of multiple countries and firms and geographies. And it's not just big firms. That doesn't mean modern production requires a big firm. Companies not combining different sets of know-how. You can move these workers around in this chicken factory, for example, and you wouldn't notice any difference. However, if you talk about this firm, I guarantee that if you move these people around, you're going to hear the difference. So this leads on to what we call the Scrabble theory of development. So if we look at products, and so products are like words, okay, and you can make different products by putting different letters together. So if I give you one letter, you can't make any words with that. I give you 3 letters, you can now make 3-letter words, and you can make, say, 4 words. If you put 4 letters, you can now make 12 words. So the more letters means the more words, or the more products, and the more diverse or complex the words or products that you can make. 10 letters in the Scrabble website says about you can make 595 words. And if you have 26 letters, you can make a huge number of words. So the more letters is the more words, the more products, and more complex those products or words can be. So different societies have different numbers of people with different letters. So when we go back to these 2 pictures here and we ask ourselves, what's the difference? It's know-how, but it's not individual know-how. The man on the left, he knows how to make the seeds, he makes the plow to harvest, etc. He's got a lot of know-how, and the guy on the right doesn't know all of these things. But if the machine breaks down, the guy on the right, he knows the phone number of the person to call to come and fix it. So he doesn't necessarily have more know-how than the guy on the left, because he's a letter in a much longer word. He's operating in a value chain where somebody does know all these things. He's a letter in a much longer word. He operates in a society of distributed know-how. And it's this combination of know-how that underpins the difference in productivity. It's not that he's in a society of geniuses, it's just that in countries with more letters can make more words. So what's the intuition here? Countries that have more letters will be able to make more words, and they'll be more diversified. The products that require more person bytes or letters will be made by fewer countries, and the products will be more complex. Countries that have more person bytes or letters will be able to make products that require more person bytes, and countries that have more person bytes should be more diversified and be able to make more complex products. And this is shown when you map this out and research. You can see down the bottom right-hand corner are all the rich countries, and the top left is where more of the poor countries are. So the bottom right, where more complex, more diverse products are made. And this actually draws out also into not only countries, but into municipalities, districts, different cities within countries as well. So wherever you go in a place, it's characterized by how diverse their set of letters are, hence how diverse their production is. So the secret of development is to accumulate more letters so that you can make longer words, and therefore you make greater diversity and more complex products. So the question then is, how do you get more letters? And this is a bit like trying to solve the chicken and the egg problem. So, you don't know how to do the things that you don't know how to do. And, so if you're, for example, if you want to learn how to make watches and you don't know how to make watches, and there are no watchmakers in the place that you want to learn how to make watches, how is Oman going to be more diversified? And the answer to this question could be characterized by the following. Which of these two animals is most similar? Now, some people would say it's the lion and the zebra because they both come from Africa. Some say that's the lion and the bear as they both eat meat. But if we go back to the Scrabble theory of development, the bear and the zebra are more similar in cognitive space, because the zebra is just like a bear with a Z. So in cognitive know-how space, it's easier to move from a bear to a zebra than it is from a bear to a lion. If you want to go from a bear to a lion, you need 4 new letters. So basically, societies are going to develop by moving to nearby products. And this can be shown here by looking at China, for example, where they got into garments. They don't grow by making more of the same. They then moved into electronics and then into machinery. Thailand, where I am at the moment, they moved into garments, then they got into electronics, and they moved out of garments because they're making more money out of electronics, and then into machinery. Tunisia, they got into garments. They tried to get into electronics and machinery, weren't that successful, so they've sort of stuck more or less in garments. And Sri Lanka, well, they got into garments. They never made the move into electronics or machinery. So it's the process of transitioning from the things you know how to do and building on these. For China, for example, moving from garments to electronics was easy. It's a chance to increase wages. Now, this graph here you've got basically is the y-axis is the minimum wage, the x-axis is basically sort of like how many letters you've got. And the problem we face here in Oman is that it's because we've got a relatively high minimum wage, it's very difficult for us, for example, to move in from oil into garments, because the garments are paid, the guys that make garments in Ethiopia, for example, they're paid less than $100 a month, and so therefore it's very difficult. Now, the challenge for Oman is that we're moving from this high wage. So for us to progress, we need to move from the things we know how to do to things nearby. So how do you get that next bit of knowledge? Okay, it's easy to learn how to play the piano if there's someone who can teach you. So, where are we going to get that? Where are we getting that infection? How would we get new letters? And getting know-how into brains, as we discussed earlier, is painful and it's difficult. It doesn't exist in books. You can't get it from universities. Human mobility is actually central to the movement of know-how. It's much easier to move brains, and I'll illustrate this in the following example. If you look at the founders of Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, they all worked at Oldsmobile. Not that they looked at Oldsmobile and tried to look at what they did. They all worked there, and they moved, taking their know-how with them, which was accumulated from repetition and experience, and set up the other companies. Here, this is Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, again, was started. Everybody would like to be a Silicon Valley. It started with a chap called Bill Shockley, who eventually won the Nobel Prize for the transistor. He went with 9 people from Bell Labs in New Jersey and set up Shockley Labs. These 9 people that he moved with then got fed up with him, and they started Fairchild Semiconductors. And then the rest of Silicon Valley was built on the infection from these other people who moved and set up their own businesses. Let's look at Bangladesh, for example. Here's another example. Bangladesh exported jute and in the 1970s, and that was about all they did. And then a Korean firm came along, took about 126 workers for a 6-month training program. And within 10 years of those 126 workers within 10 years of the 126 workers, 56 left the company to start their own businesses. And then this is what happened in Bangladesh. So they took off into the garments. So Bangladesh got into garments through this infection from the Korean company. So how do you get infection? Where do we get the people to infect us, as it were? And there's a number of channels there. The major channels of contagion or infection are, for a start, you've got your diaspora, so a group of people who move, and who know how to do the things that you don't know how to do. You've got foreign direct investment. Good examples of that is we're in Ireland and Singapore with government incentives and things like that. And finally, there's migration and immigration. We all know, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. I mean, I've had some of my guys go to Canada and go to Australia and so on and so forth. So that's a fundamental source of know-how. So in terms of creativity, migration is even more important. In California, in Silicon Valley, 54% of the STEM workers, that's the science, technology, engineering, and math workers in Silicon Valley, are foreign born. Of the remaining, most of the remaining 46 weren't even born in California, and this is a state of over 40 million people, and 28% were born in the rest of the United States. Only 18% were born in California. So in California can't do what they need to do with just California. You've got 40 million people there and they still have a lot of foreigners. 52% of the entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley are foreign born. 14% of the USA population is foreign born. 29% of the entrepreneurs are foreign born. Majority of Harvard's professors are foreign born. So many countries that don't actually compete to bring talent in, but they do allow for their talent to leave, their skilled nationals to leave. And that's something, from Oman's point of view, I mean, a lot of Omanis that well, a lot of Omanis, but a number of Omanis that I know that leave to go and work overseas. Countries differ in other dimensions as well. So, in terms of, residency, work permits, a path to citizenship, a sense of inclusion and belonging. So as we look to move to more creative migration is more important, more creative society, migration is more important. What makes some countries more able to absorb talent than others? The ability of the country to embrace immigration and inclusion. It's the stable political environment, and countries succeed also because they have a civic value-based definition of the nation, the ability to feel one of us. So when we go back to the 2040 vision, first pillar there, society of creative individuals, proud of its identity, innovative and globally competitive, enjoying a decent life and sustainable well-being, we need to ability to attract and allow talent, know-how into Oman. We need to look at residency again. We need to look at ownership. We need to be looking at a bottom-up approach, not a top-down, not government regulatory things. We need government enablers from the bottom up. And people need to feel they've got a personal stake in determining policies. Competitive economy, productive and diverse, adopting innovation. Low taxes is a help. Free trade, like the USA Free Trade Agreement, and a sound financial thing like the dollar peg, which we have. And third pillar, again, a capable state. We need to be looking at maintaining equal rights, predictable laws and protection, effective communication between the government, security and private sectors. This is something I come across quite regularly with in my business. And everybody needs to have consistent behaviors aligned with the 2040 vision. With that, that's my presentation over. So if anybody got any questions or comments and things, I'm very happy to take those, or just we open up for discussion.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. If you can take over.
Go ahead. Thank you, Riham. Tim, let me start with wow, because your presentation is really wow. You've taken us so quickly into the analysis, and so deep into the analysis, and you've cleared so many. I'm talking about myself and my own ignorance. So many taboos in the mind, and you've opened so many areas where we have to look at again. And as I was touching on the introduction on emotional things, many of the recommendations that you read in 2040 and you're insisting on, such as the residency, the ability to attract talent, the acceptance, these things now take a different value after your presentation. So I thank you very much. I am sure our audience are impacted as I have been with the talk. And probably let me invite Mike, to comment or to ask questions, if I may. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Tim. I'd just like to say a very big thank you to the Majlis Al Khonji. Actually, listening to Tim, I think we have a platform here of assembled people and assembled knowledge and skills. And my question comes from this point. So thank you, Mr. Khalil. But listening to you, Tim, what I've noted down, it seems to be that, can you see for Oman, for its journey, its rapid journey towards 2040, some sort of a platform being assembled that allows human capability to be unleashed, that technology can be mobilized and used by those people. What we're seeing, what seems to be needed is we've got great young people, but we also need to assemble the right knowledge base, the right skills that can work with the talent we have here, that must use technology. Your point about minimum salaries is a clear one. We're not going to be necessarily a bottom feeder. Oman has to raise its sights in the sectors and in the industries it participates in. And if I look around our region, and I was doing some research rapidly as you were speaking, but 3 countries are listed as possible winners by 2050 in our own region. One of them is Saudi Arabia. A second is Qatar. And the third one I was really surprised at is Egypt. So when I listen to you and completely focus on know-how, what sort of platform do you see for Oman in just the next 5 years to enable us to move fast, to rapidly move towards Vision 2040?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Mike. I mean, I think the, at the moment we are in a position where we are, there's obviously financial difficulties, and we are, reducing the number of expats. Now, a lot of we've sent a lot of expats home, but they're the bottom feeders, as it were. But I think where a lot of people would benefit is, as per my presentation, is by allowing more people to come in. But I think it's a bigger question than just allowing people in. It's not just, issuing visas. It's this whole point about this inclusion of people in the society. At the moment, as I see it, if you become an Omani, we've got Simon who's become an Omani, but realistically, it's normally like 25 years before you become an Omani. And the only other path to residency is by buying a house in an ITC. But then you just get residency. It's not a work permit, and therefore you're not allowing that know-how to come in and to establish it. Oman's a beautiful country. There's a lot of people that want to live in Oman, but if you can't live there and work and start a business and keep your money in the country, like at the moment, and as we discussed before, there's the remittances out of the country, as I understand it, are in the region of 3 to 4 billion reals a year. Now that's a huge amount of money to go out of the country, and if we can get more people to come and invest and make Oman their home with the feeling that they are Omani, that they belong in the country. I mean, I feel I belong there, but obviously I'm not Omani. I'm still a foreigner. It's my home, but it's not my home, as it were. So you're sort of on a fence there as to where exactly are you? I love it there and I'll stay there as long as I can, but I am limited by my 2-year visa every time. But I wonder how many people in Oman would have made it their permanent home, invested their money, built businesses up, and then be employing Omanis as well, and giving Omanis that know-how, a bit like that, the Bill Shockley and the Silicon Valley, where you get that infection. People move along, they learn from other companies, and then they go and set up their own companies. That's how I see it progressing, really.
I think if I could just continue, Simon, but when
Please do.
Tim started talking about contagion and infection, of course, I immediately went to COVID-19. But probably it is a catalyst for us here in Oman that could be an advantage at this time, because most of us now are continuing our businesses, coexisting with COVID or what else might come along. But maybe this is a real enabler that we needed, together with our new leaders in government. But perhaps we are in a unique time and position to propel this economy forward based on some of the points that you're making. I don't know if you'd respond.
Yep.
So you ask it for yeah. Yes, I think I agree, Mike, with what you're saying. I think it's a great platform. I think I just re-emphasize that I think it's this element of not trying to have restrictive practices which prevent the growth and the ability for Oman as a whole to grow with that know-how. We need to be able to get that know-how in and allow it to stay, not come in, take the money, remit it, and then leave. You know, and that's where I see the biggest sort of barrier, as it were, in many respects.
So Tim, can I ask, and thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I like the creativity around the messaging. My question, I suppose, is: are you suggesting, in a time when there is a policy to reduce expats, increase Omanization, that actually we should be perhaps pulling back that and increasing immigration to fuel the ability to move Omanization effectively into the workplace and increase the economy at the base going forward by actually increasing the numbers on the Scrabble board and the people involved?
Well, that's a very good question, Ian, because that is an area which I struggle with, on a daily basis. Now, of course, my business is very much the low end. I've got a lot of, I've 4,000 to 5,000 expatriates on a worker level, and those are not jobs that specifically appeal to Omanis. However, where the barriers to my business come in, where I can't get the know-how into the business because there's restrictive practices on the immigration of people with know-how. And this is the bit where the people stop it's the talent. Oman's happy for Omanis to, well, they're maybe not happy for Omanis to leave and go and work in London, Singapore, Australia, and so on. But at the same time, we as in Oman are not embracing some of that know-how to come in and then allow that contagion and that infection to occur with that know-how. And that's where I think, and I know I'm in discussions with the Ministry of Labour and so on, and I know there's a lot of new points coming out on that. So I wait to hear that, but I think that actually is the key. It's selective immigration, not just stop it all and let's grow it.
Yeah. Ian, yes, you got your answer in? Yeah. You see, if you don't have any question, I would like to talk about how, continue from where Mike has reached, the infection. You said to get the infected, you can do it in 3 ways. Either, or all of them: foreign direct investment, immigration, and diaspora. I think 2 are practically totally absent in Oman. Not practical, I mean, they're minimum, which are foreign direct investment and diaspora. For immigration, we have today 1.7 million expatriates. However, as you said, maybe 85% of them are below primary schooling. I don't think we have managed to attract talent, and we did not travel. The Omani used to travel. Now we seem to be all locked within the boundaries of Oman. Only oil companies do send some Omanis abroad, and they come back as real gems, and they start their own business. So to get infected, we need to work maybe on these three things: the foreign investment, immigration, and diaspora. However, I understood that it's not the know-how of one individual today. The Scrabble theory, you know, you need more individuals who know to get more complex product. However, the role of research and development maybe does not need that degree of infection. What I want to say, I want to highlight the role of research in all this exercise of finding, of discovering know-how or of creating know-how. What's your view on that, on research and its importance in the prosperity, you know, in the looking for the prosperity?
Yeah, I think the look at research for prosperity. I'm not, Simon, I'm not entirely clear about your question there exactly. If you could just sort of summarize that a little bit.
I thought, you know, you described very well how we should get infected and how to build in that infection to get to a complex know-how, society know-how, to produce more products. I did not see clearly the role of research. You talked, of course, of bringing talent, because to me, research, you know, or innovation, or starts with education. Of course, it starts with then research. Education and research lead us to knowledge. When we have that knowledge, which is the know-how you're talking about, then we can reinvest it. We can innovate and reinvest it in our industries. So you covered very well the global scene, the Scrabble theory. Maybe we can highlight a little bit more on the independent research, you know, and.
I think yes, Simon. I think where the way I see it is the you know, study, research, and everything is great. It goes back a little bit to the point I made at first, like the technology, the combination of the technology. You've got the tools, you've got the protocols. So you're going to study and research is great, but it doesn't give you that know-how. The know-how is the bit that's difficult to move. That only comes with repetition and you know, sort of imitation and accumulated over a number of years. So research is great, and it provides you with some very well-educated people with a lot of knowledge as opposed to know-how. And that's the bit which we've got a lot of in Oman. We've got a lot of well-educated researchers and things like that, but they need to be together. And this is the problem I come up a lot of the time. And I think a lot of us in our companies in Oman, we've got a lot of people that want jobs, but they've got no experience, and they want to start up at the top, and they need to start lower down and get that infection from with the skills and the knowledge that they've got.
Yeah. Well, you convinced me so eloquently. Thank you very much, by making the nuance between knowledge and know-how. You talk technology. That's thank you. Riham, we have any questions from the audience, or do you want me to?
One. Hi, it's Charles Shaw speaking. Tim, great to hear you. It was a really deep and meaningful presentation. As far as infection is concerned, I think we can start the infection tomorrow in this country. I don't think we need lots of research. The research has been done. We don't need to spend and waste time doing research anymore. Although there may be 85% of the expats may not, maybe just doing manual work, but you've still got 15% of extremely bright people here who are currently managing companies, leading companies, and they come from all over the world. They come from the US, they come from Europe, they come from India, they come from the Far East. They're here to get already. And if they were just given a chance to to start the infection tomorrow by starting their own companies, then I believe that you've already got the know-how, the skills here in this country. Let them start the businesses as soon as possible. And then by doing that, they will then start employing Omanis. There are incredibly bright Omanis here who are very, very well educated, but may not have the experience. But they will get the experience by learning from these people, from the expats who are here already. So I totally agree with you that infection is very important. I believe we can start it today, provided that the country can open up and allow these entrepreneurs to start setting up these businesses as soon as possible.
Oh.
Yeah, Charles, I totally agree with you. I think it's a from my perspective, I think it's a mixture of the opening up, and what we've also got to, the direction that we've got to go in is to try and reduce the remittances. So by allowing people to make Oman their home, they then keep the money in the country, reinvested in the country, and then also they're going to then employ Omanis who also are going to get infected with this, and then the whole process starts growing. And
exactly.
But I think there's a couple of things that need some brakes that need to be taken off, some barriers removed, and it's not the process can start immediately, but it's not going to happen. It's not the results are not going to happen overnight. But the longer you leave it, the worse the situation will get, or we won't be able to start it. So there's no time like today to start it as soon as possible, in my view.
Yeah,
I would like to
all
comment.
we now need is new regulations.
Yes, Charles. However, we have to be fair to the new regulations in Oman. The Easy Invest or Invest Easy. You know, Charles, yourself, that tomorrow you can start a company without an Omani partner, without even declaring your capital. You go and register. It will take you one day. However, if we dig deeper in what you are saying, you're absolutely right. We have to ease labor laws. We have to ease the residency. We have to give more attraction to people like yourself and others who want to start. But the framework is there now. When I came to Oman in 1973, there was no investment law. The first one came in 1974. You had to have an Omani who owns 51%, and you had to have physically deposited 150,000 riyals in the bank. Without that, you could not work. Today, this is eliminated. So if you have a very good idea to start a business tomorrow, I give you my telephone number. Get in touch with me tomorrow. We start the business. But you're right. There is more than that. We have to facilitate other things. We have to attract people, make them, Tim talked about ownership, of citizenship, of residence, of enjoying, of belonging, of being integrated. And all these, unfortunately, they are not there as yet. Thank you. Rihan?
Yes, thank you. I would like to listen more. We'll listen from Dr. Mohammed Al-Razaqi. تفضلي.
Thank you, Rihan. Thank you, Tim, for your nice presentation. Very insightful about sustainable economic prosperous. If I see a question, actually, it's about the restructuring in the recent royal decrees in Oman that came in August 2020. About
Ahmed, can you improve the voice a bit? Get closer to your.
Oh yeah. How is it now? Can you hear me? Okay.
A bit better. If you can improve, that'll be great.
Yeah, I tried my best. So anyway, I hope it's clear now. So thank you very much, Tim, for your nice presentations. It's a holistic, and also it come up with a sustainable future of economic and how you link it to Oman Vision 2040. And I think it came in parallel with Sustainable Development Goals of the UN for economic, social, and also other pillars in terms of cities and partnership. My question, Tim, to you is about as you mentioned now, there is Prosperous for Oman to come up with social pillars in terms of attracting more talents, and for economic also to reduce tax and also to make some trade agreements with different nations. But you see that the restructuring in the ministerial, in the royal decrees that came in August 19 of 2020, they structured different ministries. One of them is Ministry of Commerce, Industries, and also Ministry of Economic. It came as a new ministry, and also for agriculture and other sectors. So what do you think about how this restructuring in ministries and about the Vision 2040, and how this could lead also to the prosperous economics for the Omani futures? Thank you.
Yeah, Mohammed, if you excuse me, I didn't get the full meaning of your question there about, I think you mentioned to saying how did the restructuring of the regulations that the government's brought in since 2040, how that will affect things. Is that correct?
Yeah, how will they facilitate things? You know, the reinstallation of the Ministry of Economy, which was absent. The grouping of ministries together, the grouping of the finances of the government companies together, the new, you know, the changes that are happening and will happen in the labor law. All these amendments, do they create a favorable? Are we going in the right direction to achieve the purpose of your talk? You know, to go to a prosperous economy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Simon. I've been very impressed by a lot of the changes that have come through, and it's put a smile on my face because it's been very refreshing. And you know, His Majesty has put forward he's got a great set of ministers, as I see it, who are very forthcoming, very open to discussion and open to change. So I feel that we've started on that road already, and I think you know, His Majesty was obviously integral part of the leading the 2040 vision, and I think he's done a great job in promoting that and trying to facilitate it. So I think, yes, 100%. I think the changes that I'm seeing now just in the last few months are very encouraging. And I think they just need to progress. But I think there's still some other elements that need to be thought about and changed to enable things to move ahead even better. Because I still think there are those barriers. As I said before, Oman is such a lovely country. There are so many people that would come and want to stay there. We've already got a lot of expatriates that have made it their home. They bought properties in the ITCs. But I would like to see more people saying, I want to come and live in Oman. I want to make it my home. I want to be able to buy a property in Kurram or Shati or wherever it might be, and build my business here, employ Omanis, and make it my home. Finished, like Californians. You go to California, they're all, they're not just white Americans. It's a complete diverse set of cultures there. You've got Abdullah Al-Barani, who we know. He's professor at Kentucky University. So it's this massive sort of cultural integration. I know Omanis cherish their identity, and I know there's a strong feeling that to be what it is to be an Omani, and I don't think Omanis are going to lose that. I don't think you can lose it. It's so ingrained in your culture, and it's such a great culture that I don't think you would lose that by allowing other people to come and become Omani. They're never necessarily going to be full Omanis, but at least they can make Oman make it feel like their country.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, David. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Yeah, next.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Khalil Al-Blushi.
Khalil. Wisdom comes now.
Oh, thanks very much. Not that old to get to that level. Anyway, thanks, Tim. It was very interesting talk. One of the points you mentioned, and I wrote it down immediately, is you said societies move to similar products and then move on to something else and on like this. But how then somewhere like Oman, this society, to quickly jump into the diversity that we are looking for, the micros, the technology, the biotechs and all that? Does it mean that we have to go into textile and heavy industries first and then go into the newer micro technology, or can we be infected and bring somebody to infect us into immediately going into that? Why to start Why not to start where others have finished? For example, I give Singapore, I think they moved from heavy industries where it is labor intensive, where they were reaching about 6 million, and they said it is too many for us to live in this island. So let's move into a smaller micro technology where we can feed the other world next to us, like Malaysia and all the others. So we are not labor intensive. Why we don't get infected towards that immediately? Thank you.
Yeah, Khalil, I think that's a fantastic question, and that goes right to the heart of things. It goes back to the sort of, in my view, the chicken and egg. You know, how do you get to do something that you don't know how to do if you haven't got that thing in the country that you want to do, like the watchmakers. So, and I think that again is it goes back to the fundamental migration thing. It's that it's not necessarily for us in Oman to come up with these ideas. It's allowing other people to say, we see an opportunity in Oman where we can take a product or an industry or whatever it might be to move to the next thing, add the Z to the bear, as it were. That's what we may be able to do that in Oman. We may, because we're all here and we can see it. But sometimes you need someone from the outside looking in to say, look at this amazing opportunity. I mean, we've got mineral wealth. We've got, you know, there's a whole host of things. I was talking to somebody the other day. Why, you know, halwa. Some people love halwa, some people don't like halwa, but can you go and buy halwa across the world? No, you probably have to go and find a specific Arabic shop somewhere. This is only a small product, but you know, someone with the idea to say, I can market halwa across the world. What a great export for Oman. It's made there. Maybe it needs, you know, industrialization of how to make it, and then we've got a great product. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think it's that element that we can only see in Oman what we can see. And sometimes you need that external view for somebody to come in and say, listen, you've got a great opportunity here. But without that migration, that ownership and things like that, then it becomes very difficult, because they go, what's in it for me? I can't, you know, I can't make it. I can't make it. As we discussed, you can invest, you can start a company and everything like that. But that sort of ownership, I think, gets down to the root of it in a way. I don't know whether that answers your question, Khalil.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
If Khalil, you don't have, let me invite youth, the future. Let me listen to Hayyan and Lawati. Come on, Hayyan. Tell us how you are going to participate to our future prosperous economy. Where are you? Hayyan? His photo is on the screen. Okay, let's invite Abdul Wahab.
Okay.
Abu Rashid.
Yes, Simon. Thank you, Simon. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Great presentation. Great talk. I keep always asking myself, and correct me if I'm wrong, the game starts by clearly knowing, looking at your crystal ball, knowing what do you want. You live in a region, a continent, and a world that is competitive, which is the way it is. It's been always, and it will continue to be. And if we look at many countries' experiences, whether we're looking at Malaysia, Panama in Central America, even China, Great China started in the 80s. They were clear. China, Deng Xiaoping was very clear where he wants to go. And it was all leadership. Similarly, when I speak about Malaysia, Mahathir, and many other countries. Does the game or the game plan starts with somebody who has a very clear vision, not in writing. It's good. You can write as many visions as you want, and they end up to be wish lists. But clear in terms of understanding where we are in Oman, what is our competitive advantage, if there is any, and what others are doing, and how can we work in a way to make sure we have an economy here, the diverse. And I'm all for the importing talent and easing immigration. And we need to be very clear on that, because this issue of identity, I think, is a little bit misunderstood by many, because we want to grow, we want to be strong, we want to be diverse, but yet we want to do it without allowing that immigration without allowing, I mean, I will buy a residency, as you said, but I cannot work. It doesn't work for me. Why would I want to come and live here if I cannot work? And there are many talents around the world. And from my experience, there are people from the Arab world today live in Germany, live in UK, US, Canada, who are specialists in their area, whether it is medicine or technology. And they would like to come actually live in Oman for a number of reasons. One of it is the culture, and especially, you know, when you're bringing up your children, especially girls, you'd like to be here. And I spoke with many. So then my question is, to not take much of your time, where this clear path starts from? Is it the leadership, clear will, like Hasina did in, for example, in Bangladesh? And we've gone through that experience, and we know she was very bold. She was very clear what she wanted to do, and many had challenged her way of doing things, but she did it, and she went ahead and she did it, and we can see the progress. So my question, Tim, where the game starts, from where exactly? Is it with a document that we have called Vision 2040 with the content in it, or is it with a clear understanding and intent and bold moves from the leadership? Thank you. I'm sorry if my question is not that clear.
I think Abdul Wahab, thank you very much for that question. I think your question is very clear. I think it's a debatable one. I don't think I can give you a clear answer to that in my position, but I think it's probably a mixture of both in some respects. I think we have a very strong, clear leadership from His Majesty. I think the 2040 vision is excellent and it's well thought out. I think there's some reticence, I think, from how do I put this? I think that there's a worry, as I feel it, as a slight undercurrent, that there's some protectionism for the citizens of Oman, which is totally understandable. I mean, why not? You know, you've got the Omanis are Omanis, so we need to look after them. We need to look after the people of the country. That's the primary importance. But I think the longer term, you know, that's a short-term view, and I think the longer term, which is the 2040, there will be some difficulties. But I think that maybe it's a dip, and then it starts to come up again, because people will see the benefit of having the, you know, this other talent coming in that then grows it. And people say, well, this is a great business, I can go and start it myself. I've seen a lot of Omanis come in, learn stuff, and then go off and start say, you know, facilities management businesses. So we already see some of that infection, but they could probably do with being able to import also some other talent to help them grow even better.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Riham, can I go to their excellencies? First, I would like to ask His Excellency Abdul Rahim Naki to comment, and then His Excellency Khamis, who left the court specially to join us and join the meeting.
Yes, sure.
Saad Abdul Rahim? Maybe he's away. He will come back. Saad Khamis? You are there. I can see you.
Okay. Thank you very much. In fact, I would like to second my opinion that the journey was very, very interesting, very, very informative, and very, very useful. However, you have summarized the conclusion in the last two slides, which both of them have two main aspects. The first one is a society of a creative individual, which this is I think is a good point to start with. And you say that either we build this capacity in acquiring knowledge, or we invite other people to live here and be resident, so they can participate and contribute and consider this as their place and their country. I totally agree in this direction. I think we always need to leverage on more capacity than the local capacity of the place. We have to increase and level up all our knowledge, but also we open the door for leveraging other people. The second one is competitive economy. You say that we need a competitive economy states. And in that one, you say you will talk about low tax, free trade, and sound currency. Also, I agree 100% with this. I think it sounds very good. My tricky question, how you see the recent tax which have been lifted in the country? Is it taking us there, or it is too high?
No, I think in terms of the taxes, I think taxes are inevitable, and I think the taxes, the recent, if you're talking about the sort of like the VAT and the potential income tax as well, I think those have been in the pipeline for a long time. Even though not announced or anything, I think they were inevitable in many ways. Taxes are never. People don't like taxes anyway, but I think all economies have taxes, and it's inevitable.
We're coming in on excise duties and the impact with our neighbouring countries.
Oh right, okay. I mean, Mike, do you want to answer that one on my behalf, because you probably know a little bit more about it? I don't know enough about the excise duties, to be honest, Kamis. Yeah.
Mr. Simon, may I say something?
Yeah, please go ahead, Mike. Any input is welcome.
Okay, so thank you thank you, Your Excellency. That's it's a negative, significantly negative move. The increase of excise duties with our neighbouring countries, because it puts in a physical barrier to doing business, and it causes what could be free flows, competitive flows, to become disrupted. So you will see that, and I think are seeing already, that having physical barriers will impact, for example, tourism in this country. It will impact the flow of people in to participate in tourism and to create wealth. And for example, if we look at low-hanging fruit, so next door in the UAE, for example, 8 to 10 million people who could be coming here to participate in tourist activities. But if you have high taxes, or you have barriers such as visas that are not easy to get and not easy to come across the border, then you will find that the flow of those people will be constrained and the flow of trade will be reduced dramatically. This is what I would say.
Yeah. If I may add something on taxes in general, if it were up to me, I would delay new taxes and concentrate more on implementing and collecting the taxes that are in place now. In particular, the corporate tax on profits. There are less than 2% of the companies operating in Oman who pay tax. The complaints are 90%, but only 2% pay. And if we implement that properly, I reckon the income, the extra income, will be equivalent to the VAT. So rather than in delaying the VAT and concentrating on collecting and making sure that the system of collection works is probably more appropriate at this stage. Amir Al-Matani, we would like to hear your voice. Ustaz Amir. They're economizing time, these guys.
Thank you, Simon. I think I feel very touched by the debate, and I wish I could have joined earlier, but unfortunately I couldn't. But however, from what has been said, and I think there's always going to be a challenge in any journey, and we do have there's a change which is imminent, and I think the recent restructuring is definitely going to bring. But it's like anything, I think managing the culture for this change is where we have to invest a lot of time, because sometimes some of those changes are not as maybe perceived to be as bad, but it could be actually, I think now we have a lot of, even when we talk about, let's take the vaccine and because we talk about infectious things, and there's a lot of conspiracy when it comes to the implementation of any change or any addition. We do live in a very dynamic world. We are part of this global economy. We will be impacted. Any protectionism is not going to help because you have to be competitive, and to be competitive, talent and attracting talent is not a choice until you build your own talent pipeline. But even if you build your own talent pipeline with not enough exposure to be that infectious, or to have that knowledge being transferred between individuals and systems and organizations, will be still living in a cocoon, which might be overprotected. And unfortunately, it's like having your own, living in our environment. If you're not really being exposed to the outside world, you'd be really very exposed when you get eventually to the outside world, because even a small company who would like to aspire to grow nationally or internationally, eventually they have to go into that territory of growth and will be beyond the boundaries of Oman. And unfortunately, if you create that protectionism, then also the other side might act exactly the same. So, and I do see the merit in allowing, there's enough movement into goods, services, as well as talent. And unfortunately, if those barriers do exist, then you might not end up with the right talent. That's one thing. The other thing actually is the whole cultural and the socioeconomics element into trying to engage into a more proactive, more sort of progressive way. It needs to be addressed, and it's to be addressed at all levels, be it at a school, be it a tertiary education, and be it even within the entrepreneur mindset, because even the current entrepreneur mindset, actually, it's still embedded within the cultural value, which is nothing wrong with it. But actually, those values sometimes, if you blend them with a more multinational element, they actually will be enhanced than being. So I think sometimes people get confused between this, I want to protect, versus I have to be open. And I think it's striking a balance. It's not a choice anymore. It's a necessity, because we have looked into these systems and the processes around it, although there is still a challenge to be enhanced. But actually, it's the element of also you need to have the organizational structure to it. You have to have the right competencies, and the right competencies, it is needing a lot of experience. So it's not only the knowledge. And I think this is crucial element. The longer the word, the better the value. It definitely comes with an individual with number of years of experience. And I think if somebody touched base on the oil and gas industry as an example, the only success oil and gas achieved is through that cross-fertilization of talent, and having talent exchange across borders, and bringing those people with massive years of experience, and trying to. And we have, for example, in the oil and gas, and I would take the company I worked for years. It's we grow our own timber, as we said it, and but that process took years to actually to mature. And we had allowed for years some expatriate content into it, and those expats who they brought a lot of expertise, they brought a lot of leading practices from where they come from, and actually they embraced the Omani culture as well. So Omani culture is not a barrier for them to, but actually it was more of the other side of the coin, which you need to have to go together. So, and I'm really. I hope whatever the change might come, and I think also it was touched base on the new government apparatus do accommodate people in and take suggestions, and they're more inclusion. But actually, people will only see it when it's tested and practiced, and those regulations need to be. I would recommend maybe to Sheikh Khalil in the due course. There was a guy who did also another research on the entrepreneurship and the barrier of entrepreneurship in Oman. And I think one of the outcomes he said, and I think it was touched on the discussion today, it is the the element of the expat are not allowed to do business. I know, Simon, you challenged that, but I think there are more underpinning heading factors. Maybe that person might actually engage with us and share with us some of his expertise from the research. And he published in a couple of very sort of good sort of what I call the journals. And I would be really nice to invite him in due course to share his perspective. I'll have to stop because the debate is really rich and I would love to go forever. Thank you so much to Simon for inviting me.
Alan, Amr, Alan. Tim, would you like to say something? Because I would like to comment a little bit on what Amr said.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Please go ahead, Simon.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for suggesting that we should invite experts to talk on the subject. We'll definitely, Reham, will take the name. I think His Excellency Khalil is open to that. I want to highlight the perfect example that you gave of the oil sector and how many Omanis developed their talents working in the oil sector. And the example of Oldsmobile and Ford applies here very, very well. How many Omanis do we see now who worked in the oil and gas, left it, and went out and started their own business and created jobs? Well, probably the most successful example are Mohammed Barwani or Gulf Energy, many industries like G-Pipe, you know, many service providers, which gives a very, very good example of what Tim was saying about joining the industry, working in it, knowing it, and doing away, not necessarily copy and waste, as he said, but to innovate and develop new businesses, make the words longer and the product more complex, using his words. Excellent. Dr. Mohammed Al-Farsi, okay, I'll come back to you, Abdullah. Okay. Let me get in Dr. Mohammed Al-Farsi. Can you hear me? Or maybe he's not there. He will come back. Okay. Abdullah, would you like to take over? Yes.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. I appreciate what Mr. Amr Al-Mutani mentioned. I also want to emphasize the fact that if we want to grow anything, it's like any field, you have to make sure the field is ready for you to implant anything. So the culture issue that Mr. Amr Al-Mutani brought is a very important. And I think unless we address, especially if you're talking about importing talent, allowing experts to work and so forth, you need to make sure the culture is ready, or the culture is more embracing, culture is more accepting. And unless that work is done, I don't see it within Vision 2040 when it comes to economy anyway. And I might be wrong, but that needs to be done, because change is not about only bringing tools and ideas and just putting them. Change requires a culture, an environment that is ready to accept change, or to work with change at least until it accepts it when it sees the wins. So I hope, and I don't know whether Tim agrees with that, or what he thought, what he thinks about that part of the work that needs to be done before changes take place, especially when we're talking, I mean, Oman is a big country, population is small. We need a bigger population. We need a population that can, productive population. To do that, definitely one of the things that we need to think about and think like others who have done, and many countries have done, is importing talent and allowing talent to work, and giving the talent the incentive to stay in Oman, live in Oman, be Omanis. So I would like to hear Tim on that.
Yeah, Abdul Wahab, thank you very much. Yeah, I don't have anything really to comment on that apart from to agree with what you're saying. I think that's you've put it very well there. It's a very good sort of summary of where I also see it going. So I think you're right there. You've got the same view that I've got.
Thank you.
Excellent. Riham, if we do not have any more questions, I will.
Can I just add a more point or question to I mean, can I ask another question? Yeah. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Tim, again. I guess
Please.
it came to me, this question. It's about, if you think about, let's say, two big nations. In the EU, for example, there are 28 countries, and they share like freedoms in movement of goods, services, capital, and the people. They are 28, and they are easily moving around. They're doing business. Now, if we take another scenario here from the Gulf states, like in the Gulf, the 7 or 6 member states of the Gulf, or 5. So if we ask about the movement of goods, services, and the people from the Gulf states to Oman, because they are sharing the similar socioeconomic in terms of, you know, like income and other stuff, businesses, probably even the culture, as Engineer Armour, he mentioned, and the other colleagues. So what do you think about the status of the Gulf states in terms of empowering, let's say, facilitating businesses, and what Oman as a location needs to do to improve their, let's say, business traders, relationships and partnerships, let's say within the globe or maybe within different continents. So this is my question. So if you take an example of Europe, it's a 28 member states, and they're having all the four F's, freedoms of goods, people, you know, and services and capital money movement. If you think about the Gulf, now we have a Gulf states, and we have members of the Gulf, and they have similar kind of scenarios. The people of the Gulf, even if they are born in the Gulf states, or maybe they are migrants, or, you know, they could also move to Oman, and they could do similar businesses. There are different industrial states. There are free zones, and also they could do businesses local in the Oman economy. So from your vision and your experiences, what do you think about the Gulf states? Do you think it will support the idea of movements and the business, or maybe diffusion of economy from different Gulf states to Oman, and of course could facilitate? Now we see, for example, there is Wakra, big project in Agdokom. We see many big companies in Agdokom, for example, between Oman and Kuwait. Also, we see many UAEs companies are in Oman, in service sector, in manufacturing, in process. So what's your view of that, of the Gulf states, Oman locations, and does Oman need to do also another step to do other cartels, let's say, or business partners within the region? So thank you, Tim.
Clear. Tim?
I'd also like some, perhaps somebody else can help on this one. This is not something I can really comment on. I don't know whether Mike's got some views on this or not. But I think Mohammed's got a very good point there. But I think I'd rather somebody else could probably perhaps pick up that question.
Yeah, I think we talked more about how enhance our economy internally. We start from bottom upwards, and obviously the more we can tie in and facilitate movement, particularly between the GCC countries, the better. However, unfortunately, the system of integration is very slow, and it is seeing many challenges. The crisis between some of the members of GCC does not help at all. And the ego of certain people is not helping. You see, we had, for example, a huge project, which is the GCC railway, and it sounded at the time as a main artery for movement of goods, for example, and that's been delayed. But I'll leave Mike to comment more. He rose his hand.
Thank you,
and
Simon.
I promised to give you an early lunch, so we'll probably conclude in a few minutes. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Simon. I think Mohammed raises a very good point to observe and learn and cherry pick ideas from other groups of countries like the EU, as he was saying in his example. Actually, in Oman, and building from Tim's presentation, but Oman has put in place a considerable infrastructure and platform for regional businesses, indeed businesses from around the world, to come to use our free zones. So Soha Free Zone, for example, is just a natural place, if we market to the right potential users, to come to this region to do business. And in the same way as we were talking about tourism and saying low-hanging fruit for tourism was next door in Oman, but we had to work on the enablers like visas, for example, and speed of people coming across. In the same way, when we talk about the Omani free zones of Soha, of Dukum, of Salalah, and more, but natural fruit comes, believe it or not, from looking at India or Pakistan, because those countries still have massive disruptive influences to doing business. But Oman has a cherry. We have this unique relationship with the USA of a free trade agreement. And honestly, I don't think we've maximized the potential that that relationship provides. This is one. But more than that, but we are in the age, as Simon was talking about earlier, when frankly, taxes like corporation tax have little value anymore. They don't really earn a lot of money for a country. What does earn money is gainful employment of the national population and links to things like income tax. So if you actually look at more free trade agreements, which is what many countries are looking at. China, for example, is setting up all sorts of relationships to their country. But if Oman was looking at free trade agreements in the Indian Ocean rim countries, it is going to be many, many years before Africa, and East Africa in particular, is going to be anywhere near as good as Oman to do business in. And if we were able to attract the companies and enterprises to Oman to do their business, and in that process, we're bringing the owners and the value-added top talent of those businesses, then this process of transference of skill and knowledge to Omanis, who you would naturally employ in your businesses, will accelerate. And if we capitalize, we mustn't forget, from Tim's first slide, Oman has just achieved so much in the last 30, 40 years, thanks to the people of Oman, the late His Majesty Qaboos, and the oil wealth that allowed the funds to do this infrastructure. Now, the challenge we have, and the optimistic challenge, is with the leadership that we have, is to make Oman the place to do business in. And this next step, the next 20, 30 years, just might be the most exciting part of Oman's future in its history, which has been fantastic for hundreds of years. But this next 20, 30, with the qualified young people we have, the infrastructure, the technology, and Omanis are not afraid of foreigners. Omanis have traveled all their history. Come on, to India, to Zanzibar, across the GCC. They are natural, hospitable learners. The next 20, 30 years, with quite honestly, the free zone, now it's a story of our government bodies working coherently together with our security apparatus in our wonderful ROP, enabling us to do business, whether we happen to be a genuine Omani, or whether you happen to be a genuine Omani like me, who's lived here for 30 years with nothing but love and passion for this country, or you happen to be a foreigner that comes here to choose to do business in Oman because of what it offers. But as a community, as indeed we are on this, when I look at all the pictures on this Zoom, as a community of people with a common interest aligned to quite an exciting vision in 2040, under His Majesty Sultan Haytham. we have an awful lot to do, and it's very, very exciting. Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Rihan, can I do a little briefing? Yes.
Yeah, we just before we submit to Simon, we have
Please.
Richard is raising his hand.
Yeah, excellent. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Richard.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for allowing me to join today. I appreciate the invitation. I'm trying to encapsulate all of this as Tim's amazing presentation knitted together many things that I think are so important. As someone who grew up in California and used to drive around with family members and have them, as I would look out the window and see old, derelict, not moving anymore oil derricks, I used to ask the question, what were those for as a young child? And they would say that was kind of the oil economy. We used to be heavily invested into that, you know, and we've transitioned into other things. And as I'm sitting here right next to Mina Al Fahal right now on a way back from a trip down to Bandar Khairan, I think that in the next, I don't know, I'm sure there's people that probably have a better idea of the exact oil reserves, but perhaps in the next 10 years or perhaps in the next 20 years, some of the folks on this call will be driving past Mina Fahal with its, you know, export facilities, with its refinery, and with its tanks. And your grandchildren may ask you, what are all those for? And you'll have to say, that was what enabled the Renaissance from 67 until one point. But then we made an important change when we moved into chapter 2 of the Omani Renaissance. And I think the important perspective is to look at the remaining oil and gas reserves now as a finite duration bridge to enable this transition from the oil-based economy to other things. We've talked about during this discussion and also our discussion several weeks back or maybe a month back with a gentleman from HSBC on what markets do we look at attracting here to Oman, and you know what talent do we look at attracting. And I think just a couple of points from my perspective is that when those jobs come in, when those companies come in, because Oman is a beautiful place. I've remember in my first couple of days here, sitting next to an expat at an event, and that person remarking to me, the reason why I love Oman so much is because it is modernized throughout the Renaissance, but it has not lost its soul in doing so. And that's not something that you can say for any other location in this region. Oman is unique. It's near and dear to all of our hearts. But this inflection point, this point now in 2020 of how do we use the oil and gas revenue as a bridge and start attracting that talent in. And as one of the members so eloquently said, you know, the oil and the gas, the PDOs, the Shells, the Occidentals, and all of the downstream service contractors that have provided exceptional services. Now that know-how is going to have to be pushed into other directions to make Oman fully actualize its potential, especially in a time where, you know, let's not be naive. The production cost for a barrel of Omani oil is significantly more than some of its neighbors. So if global oil prices continue to drop, that horizon of how long this time bridge of reliance on the oil and gas industry gets shorter and shorter, and it increases the urgency of is what's next, what's chapter 2, how do we get these other industries, you know, jump started in what fields. So just observations, unfortunately, no concrete recommendations on what to do, but I think just highlighting the fact that we are at that inflection point and acknowledging that this oil and gas that got us here, as we say in strategic leadership, the skills, the tactical and technical skills that got all of us on this phone call to the positions we're at, in many instances are irrelevant to success at the strategic level. In the things that got Oman to where it is that oil-based export economy from 1967 till now will probably become less and less relevant as Oman moves forward. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Maggie, you sent a message. Would you like to say it on the air, please? Are you there with us? Maggie Jeans? Okay. Riyam?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
we have covered.
Hello.
Yeah, there you are. Maggie, please, you're on the air.
Yes, I make the point that Oman is a very inclusive society. If you look historically, it's absorbed the groups from Zanzibar, the Baluchis, the Lawatis, people from India, people from Pakistan, people from Iran, people from a wide variety of backgrounds who've settled in Oman and made Oman their home and contributed to the economy. So opening this a little wider should be a very easy move. That's my comment. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, and one Lebanese, you forgot, it's me.
Yeah, the Lebanese, one very good Lebanese. Absolutely, yes.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you. Let me then, if I may, before I thank everybody, let me take you in 2 minutes, what we discussed, what the presenter presented to us. We're talking about the secrets of prosperous economy. We said that Oman has achieved a lot, but how can we now make it sustainable? How can we go forward, make a prosperous economy without relying so much on the oil? And the secret word, the magic word, is technology. And technology requires tools, he said. It requires codes, and it requires know-how. 2 of these 3 conditions are easy to achieve. The third one is not that easy, and that is know-how. Because the know-how sits in the mind. It's not conceptual, he said. And he looked at how prosperous societies or societies that have developed, how did they do that? And he took the metaphor of, or the example of Scrabble. How can we add, the more letters we can make, the more words we can form. And how do we get infected with that knowledge? We start with one individual knowing something in a certain environment, then another one and a third one, and now we talk about a team who have know-how and not individuals anymore. We talked about a little bit the challenges in Oman, and then he took us through or advised us how to get infected by foreign direct investment, immigration, and our diaspora. Then we ended up with some needs that we need to do to get our 2040 ongoing. We have to rethink of the ability to attract talents, facilitate residency, make people feel the ownership and belonging to the country. Try to keep taxes as low as possible, benefit from the free trade within the agreements that we have, not only with USA, we have several other trades with the Ashgabat, for example, with Iran and Kazakhstan. We're not benefiting a lot, and try to keep a sound currency. Now, then he said something very, very interesting when he concluded. He said we have to have a consistent behavior along with Vision 2040. In that respect, His Majesty, and I'll end it there, His Majesty in his latest cabinet said it is the responsibility of every individual to achieve the 2040. And he said without exception. You know, that message is so strong and so new actually to our culture, that it's my responsibility to participate to the success of 2040. And every one of us should ask themselves every day now, what is that little thing that I did to achieve 2040? Our participation to 2040 today was this lovely Zoom with Timothy. He presented the subject so well. And I'll let you speak, Mike, in a second. And I would like, no, you rose your hand, both hands. I would like to thank, of course, Tim for making the time to come and speak with us. His Excellency Khalil for providing this platform, interesting platform, cultural, economical, social, not political platform. And I thank Riham. She's becoming the best professional facilitator of all Zoom in the world. Thank you, Riham.
Thank you.
And goodbye, everybody. Unless His Excellency wants to say something.
Yeah, I would just like to mention the next session.
Please do that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tim, for your presentation and discussion. And thank you, Mr. Simon, for your excellent moderating for this session. Thank you, our guests, for your wonderful participation. In our next session, we will talk about the open government data and its impact on the economy. Our guest will be Dr. Muhammad Al-Farsi, and the presentation is in English. The discussion will be open in Arabic and English. Until we see you next week, stay safe and have a great week ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.